Hey guys, welcome back to Exotic Car Hacks, and today we're going to be looking at the bullish cars of 2025. Now, each and every year I do a list of investment cars that I believe have the best opportunity for increased pricing while you get to enjoy them in the year ahead. Now, I have a pretty good ratio of 96% being successful with these predictions, so hopefully we'll take a look at 2025's upcoming predictions, and then in a future video, go and recap our 2024 predictions, what we saw and what we didn't. Now, in this particular prediction video, I'm going to do something a little bit different than usual. I'm going to go a little bit deeper in details about cars you need to be looking at, specifically around years, mileage, etc. Rather than just saying, go buy this type of car, I'm going to be a little bit more thorough with my specifications because there's such a broad range of cars right now on the market, and it could mean significantly different things. Now, we've been bullish on the first car, and a car that I just acquired myself, and that is the LP640. So the LP640 Murcielago was an 07 to 2009, and the cars are relatively all over the place, which makes it very difficult to kind of understand which car you should go after and why go after this specific car. Now, before we even ask me, yes, this is for the E-Gear car, not the gated manual, partially because the gated manual is already well into the seven figures and no longer makes sense to take a risk of that magnitude unless you have heavy cash and a really strong ability to move cars. So the really bigger opportunity, in my opinion, is on the E-Gear market, and specifically on the 08 and 09 market. Now, why those two? Because the 09 was the best year, the final year, and the transition to the Bosch parts in the car, meaning that the cars are much more reliable, much more sought after, and the majority of 09s have ceramic brakes that are standard. Now, in 08 and 07, you had options for ceramic brakes, and so even if you are buying an older one, I highly recommend buying an 07 and 08 with ceramics rather than not. So something you definitely need is ceramic brakes more than anything else. But something that I would tell you to actually look out for, because there's a lot of cars on the market that have a ton of accidents. There's a ton of cars that have accidents reported. There are a ton of beautiful color cars that have the right options, but unfortunately have some kind of history. So you want a clean history car. Doesn't mean it only has one owner, but you genuinely want a car that has no damaged parts, even if it had a slight repaint on the front bumper, etc. Something else you want to look out for, you want to have under 10K miles. This is something that makes the cars much harder to get. So there's going to be a lot of cars that are going to be 15, 20,000 miles, etc. And there's nothing wrong with buying those cars, but the next pop in the market this coming years for this specific LP640 market is going to be those cars basically between 0 and 10K miles. So that's where your focus point basically needs to be. Now, the argument is going to be how much should you pay, where should you be? As of the filming of these videos, the majority of values on the LP640s today are going to be between 280K for good cars all the way up to 350K, unless we are talking about cars like the car I just bought for over 400 grand because it had 300 miles. So those are going to be cars that are much harder to price out, simply because you're not going to find 200-300 mile cars on the market. But the majority of these cars for coupes, and you're going to be looking for coupes first, roadster second. If you get a roadster, make sure it's a cool color. Otherwise, a coupe, you can be more like a black. White is still okay. I'd rather have a white coupe than like an orange roadster, but if I could have an orange roadster, that would also be fine. So the reason I want the coupes is because there's less coupes, and they're going to be just a much better car ultimately and retain their shape and position better because the top's not going to get damaged over time. So 280 to 350 is where you want to be. And the reason this range is again wide is not just because of mileage restrictions, but because during your private purchase inspection, you're going to discover a ton of things wrong with these cars. Everything from services not done to belts to things such as clutches needing to get redone. And now we're talking about 18, 10, 15, 20 grand added to the cost of the car. So once you're in the car, this is basically the range you want to be in the car if you're going to be holding the car, under or around 350K depending on the car, so that you can ride it all the way into the 4s and 5s. So this is the first car that I'm going to be very bullish on. And again, I always put my money where I tell you guys to put your money. So this is a car that I just acquired, and I probably paid one of the highest prices for a 300 mile balloon white 09. that was literally a brand new car, no paintwork, one owner, all records. So this is the extreme of it, and you can go that direction if you want. But again, if you intend to drive and enjoy, I don't, as I have 37 cars. But in your particular case, you may want to enjoy the car. It's a very enjoyable car to drive. So that is somewhere where you can kind of look at like, holy crap, this is the high of the market. Let's look here about where the sweet spot is in the purchase point, and that's basically where it is. So this is basically the first car on my list that I think is really worth going after. Now, second car that I also purchased that I believe is going to be bullish in this year is the F355. Now the F355 in this particular case only gated, so I'm going to put that large. If you read the majority of publications, they're going to tell you 1995, which is what I bought as well, is the only year that you want to go after the car, because after that they had higher tech computers and it was harder to fix and blah blah blah. Yes, that's true. The 95 is going to be more collectible, it's going to be more enjoyable to drive, it's going to break down less, so that's a better car to buy. However, there are still good opportunities in the 96, 97, GTS models, etc. So it's not just limited to the 1995, but the one that you want to be going after if you want the market to really push for you is going to be the F355 gated. Now, with these cars, you want to be paying between 120 to 135, maybe as high as 150 for, depending on the configuration, the services, and how much money it needs. Now, the thing that I'm going to say is this is the lower range of what you expect to pay. This is the higher range of where you expect to end up once you're fixed and ready to be on the road. So these ranges are important because, again, no two cars are going to be equal. We're talking about 20-year-old cars. You're not going to have cars that after 20 years of age are going to suddenly seem to be perfect from the no issues, no leaks, nothing. Interiors need to get redone. Some panels will need to get repainted. There's often cracks on the rear three-quarter panels on these cars. So there's a lot of stuff going on with the F355 that's not as black and white as a modern Ferrari. I would tell you that if you have a car with service records that doesn't need anything extreme or huge, that has had brake pads done and some of the basics and is road ready, you're gonna buy a car, preferably if you don't intend to drive it, somewhere between 15 to 30,000 miles, and over 30 if you intend to drive it. These cars are gonna go up in value just because they're undervalued right now. So I expect this pricing to be somewhere in the 200K range in the next 12 months for qualified cars. So again, having a qualified car, you know, you're roughly looking at a 25% increase this year. I think this is where the market's going for these particular cars and what you need to look at. You have to look at gated cars. The F1 cars do absolutely nothing, so just stay away from those cars altogether. In this particular case, there's no future will involve F1 cars. This is a gated car only, so just look for that specifically, meaning this is not a car just like the LP640 that's a gated version and an E-Gear version that are both valuable. In this particular case, only the actual gated version is undervalued right now and still a very, very good buy in the future, especially for 1995, as the problems are going to be much less owning the car over a duration of time. Not as bad as some of these more modern 1997 F1 cars. So anyways, these are my two first predictions. Now let's go into the next one. Another car that, again, this is pretty much a no-brainer. They go up every year. I think this is going to be a really good year for the 993 Turbo and the non-Turbo, as long as they have an aero kit. So these are going to be your two only requirements. Either a 993 Turbo or a C2S, C4S with the aero kit on from the factory, not just added after. These cars, you're going to particularly want to look for 1996 to 1998. 98 did not have a turbo. It only had a C4S and a C2S, but the 993 Turbo can be bought 96 to 97, with Turbo S's and 97 being some of the highest, most prized cars to date. My opinion here about where the money's at on these cars going forward is going to be on the 1996 Turbo, simply because it's the only one that hasn't shot up as much as the 97 or the 98. So there is a huge opportunity, in my opinion, for the 96 Turbo or for the 98 Aero Kit cars. So I personally own a 98 Aero Kit car with very low miles, with like 20,000 original miles. There are 96 turbos right now with like 10, 15, 20,000 miles. These cars are going to be going somewhere in the 300s. And that's, I think, the sweet spot for these. And these are also going to be going in the 300s. So, you know, the right cars, in my opinion, are all going to be basically 300K cars if they're well maintained, ready to go, and drivers. Now, if you have cars that are going to be cheaper than that, you're typically going to have cars that are going to need your opportunity in bringing them back to life, which is also okay, because as you get older cars, like I said, you can't expect them to actually go anywhere. Now, in my opinion, this entire pool right here is easily a 500K market. and we're maybe 24 months from that. So I'm a big believer, maybe even earlier, but I think that this is the underdog here in the market in the high twos for 96 turbos and 98, Aero kit cars. Now, I have seen some 96 turbos without favorable color packages or options sell in the 250s, which is very much doable. So I don't want you to think that you have to go pay 300. I usually say 300K is like the max. You want to be in something all done, perfect, ready to go, the right color. So use that measure and work backwards because you kind of know where the market's going. Now next, another car that I absolutely think has so much room to keep going. They had a slight little dip, the Ford GT. 2005 to 2006. Ideally, you want to obviously look for a 2006 3 option plus car, meaning 3 to 4 options. Now, there's only 4 options, so basically a car is known as 1 option, 2 option, 3 option, 4 option. Now, surface-driven kind of thing, most Ford GTs are going to be highly based on color and rarity of color. But one thing that I would say that I've noticed over the last year, this pattern has emerged, that no stripe cars bring way more money than stripe cars. So if it was my prediction on going in a car for the next, like 12 months or so, I would be looking at an 05 or 06, no stripe car, preferably an 06. It's going to be more expensive, but I think it'll bring more money. I would look at a 3 option plus car, and I would look for a fully OEM car, no matter what. Even if I was going to throw wheels on it and suspension, just drive it a little bit, I would want to go back to something that can go back to OEM. Now, the Ford GTs, now I hold a car like this for driving pleasure, not really for investability, because I have an 06 Ford GT 4 option with 13,000 miles that I have owned for like 2-3 years that I bought in the hundreds. Now it's like well out there. This is, I think, currently roughly a 350 to 400K market, depending on the cars, how clean they are, etc. Just keep in mind, parts are very hard to find on the original Ford GTs, like headlights being broken and things like that are gonna be very, very hard to repair and find. So in my opinion, this is an easy 500 to 700K market. Excuse me. And that's where we're heading with that specific market in 24 months. So in my opinion, for 2025, we're gonna start seeing that rise again as we're seeing cars start to disappear. Now, one of the factors I'm looking at when I'm looking at these, what cars are gonna be bullish or not, is the amount of volume on the market and how it's shrinking at a significantly higher rate. So as people are willing to take positions, they're taking positions in these cars. Now remember, the exotic car market are highly dependent on supply and demand. The less supply of something, the more demand, and the more in demand it's going to be likely in this coming year, it is going to end up this way. So in my opinion here, you have a really good opportunity for these 4 specific cars, because I think they're just at a really, really good price point right now and have showed some kind of lower sense of like price dip just temporarily though, not so much like on the higher side. Last but not least is a little bit more of a modern car, which I think has some room to go up. Now the Viper market has held very, very good, and the ACR Extreme market even better. Now we saw these cars go up all the way up to the 300s, even some in the mid 300s, and they have now dropped to the mid 250s. With some of the rare cars going for the 275K range. Now, a lot of dealers are looking to stock these cars, telling you that the majority of dealers are now taking a position in these cars going into 2025. So the Viper ACR is very hard to come by, especially in good colors. Most cars were like one-of-one type, special project cars and commissions. I think these cars were gonna be very, very bullish on them going into 2025. So we can expect this price point to rise in the 350s. There's no such thing as like which options do you want or not. I mean, I would tell you that getting the right car in the right colors, like special colors, like competition blue, and if you can get a 17, because they're built basically between 16 and 17s, if you can get a 17 in the 270K range with the right color, with sub 5K miles, and what I call some kind of carbon package, which includes some of the vents, and of course some of the interior, etc. I think you're in a really, really good place. Now, not to say that you have to have this in this case. I would argue that the sub 5K miles and the 17 holds more weight than the carbon package, but colors matter the most. I personally have a competition blue no stripe car, something that I thought was very rare. It was like 1 of 5. And then in addition to that, I paid back about 1.5 years ago, so I paid much lower than that, but it was a 17, so it made sense for me to invest my money. And I think going forward into 2025, this is going to be the 5th car that I keep an eye on. So hopefully you've enjoyed this. If you want to see more content like this, have me predict values. Next, we're going to look at the 2024 predictions and how those came out. because that's all about knowing if I was accurate or not. And like I said, I have a pretty good prediction rate, so I want to go back and always focus on what went right, what went wrong, why did it go right or wrong, and then go from there. So make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Let me know in the comments if there's a car that you think has a lot of potential going up. I've heard a lot from you guys in the past that LFAs are where you think the money's at, or the new Ford GT was something where you think the money's at, the Cobra R, and these are things that I think are going up, but I don't think I'm going to be bullish on. I'll catch you next time for Exotic Car Hacks.